Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Post Disclosure Podcast. Today, we're going to be um, talking a little bit more about the teaser that we had. And this episode's going to be called They Actually Hate You: Jealousy versus Envy versus Resentment.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out the teaser, please do, because we're just going to be expanding on top of some of the things that we talked about there. Um, but yeah, I kind of want to get into the capacity for patience for these things in our lives. I don't have any patience for resentment or envy. I feel like jealousy is very normal as long as that person, like I said in the other episode, doesn't project that onto me. However, the moment I feel like somebody resents me or is envious of me, I'm genuinely not capable of continuing that relationship because I feel like at some point it's going to become toxic. I genuinely think at some point that person is going to try, and it's happened before, right? Where I've been like, I really like you, like I want to be in a relationship with you. But eventually that person starts projecting that bullshit onto me, right? Like they become really invested in humbling me, really invested in like taking me down a notch, comparing me to others. It becomes like a very weird dynamic where if I just kind of removed myself and slowly faded away when things were still good, it probably would have ended a lot better, and perhaps we could have become acquaintances or friends again when they were a bit more healed. Um, but yeah, it ends horribly because, like, at some point, somebody says something or retaliates or does something that goes a little too far. And I'm not even saying that I'm, like, innocent of this. I think there have been relationships where I've been envious and resented somebody, and it's ended badly, but I think now that I've become a lot more aware of my tendencies, I just remove myself. I'm like, "Ooh, like, the way I'm feeling right now is not normal or healthy or conducive to anything positive. I'm gonna go ahead and take a step back from this relationship until I sort out whatever the hell I have going on internally."
Those are some great points. And a few key terms that kind of popped up for me in my head when you were explaining this are negging. That's a huge thing that people have been discussing recently. And if you don't know what that is, I would highly recommend that you look into it because it's a huge issue. Typically, this is something that people usually refer to when they're talking about heterosexual relationships. But for this specific conversation, we're mostly talking about any kind of relationship, more specifically with friendships. I do want to expand on the fact that it's extremely difficult to try to navigate this situation. And I actually fully understand why you would think that it's not only best but safer to just remove yourself from that situation and not subscribe to that kind of situation because a lot of the time when this is happening, the other person is either not aware of it and they just are going to continue to be passive aggressive towards you and hateful towards you. There's nothing you could do when somebody's not even willing to change their own behaviors towards you. When it's that deep rooted, I'm not sure there is much that can be done. And if it can be done, if it's not a feeling that I'm having towards the other person, and I don't hate you. You actually hate me. And if I actually hated you, I would at least hope and pray that I would say, okay, am I going to figure out the root problem of this or am I going to step away? Either way, I do agree with you that in this situation, if you were to even try to bring up those kinds of behaviors, if they're that deep in the resentment they have for you and they're passive aggressive and they're nagging you and constantly trying to like quote unquote humble you, as you said, it's probably best to just leave that situation entirely. At this point, at what level is it not just considered emotional abuse? Like it really is that it really can get
Yeah,
that deep. It really
and
is just best. It's a toxic situation. Sometimes it really is best to just walk away from it.
I also want to define negging. So negging is like giving somebody backhanded compliments, and or just like backhanded comments. And it's kind of a way of emotionally manipulating somebody. Like Bella said, it usually happens in heterosexual romantic dynamics. But they can like, yeah, backhand compliment. They're trying to like one up you. They're trying to make little comments. Then every time you say something, it's like, oh, I was just joking, or I was just trying to provide some constructive criticism. Um, but yeah, so it's like little things that make you uncomfortable and it slowly escalates. And they try to have a level of plausible deniability of like joking or whatever else so that it makes it more difficult for you to call them out on it. And yeah, like at what level does it become emotional abuse? I don't even like saying it's emotional abuse to a certain extent because I think it gives the situation way too much power. I also want to get into like the dynamic of when you're somebody who's really secure in themselves, you genuinely don't notice. This has happened to me for so long, and I genuinely would not peep it because in my head, I'm like, I'm great. I'm the shit. Like, I'm a great person. I'm a lovely time. And I genuinely would not peep the backhanded and the weirdo things that were being said because I could not fathom that not only was someone saying it, but they were saying it to my face. It was like inconceivable to me. Um, it's really funny looking back at it now, but if you're in that situation, you're like, there's no way, babe, there is a way. I actually think to a certain extent, getting away with it in to your face is like they kind of got off on that. Um, I think in many ways, though, the reason it never really ended up escalating is because I never fed into it. Like, because it was so delusional, they weren't gaining anything. They never made me uncomfortable. I guess there was kind of like that level of like them getting off on the fact that they can shade me to my face. But girl, I'm neurodivergent. I was not peeping shit and I was lying in my own world. So they didn't really win anything. And eventually, obviously, I peeped shit. Um, but I think to a certain extent that kind of gets into something that Bella was talking about on the phone with me, which is this concept of classical conditioning and how people in dynamics with you will try and classically condition you. I mean, like Bella will probably go on to like the relationship with that and like negative and positive reinforcement, which are literally terms that we use when we're raising children. But yes, if you don't know, Pavlov's dog, the OG experiment that we all learned about in high school, where the doctor like uh used something neutral, like it's called a neutral stimulus, and he used a bell, and he associated the bell for the dogs with food, and then so was trying to see if uh the dogs learned to elicit a certain response, aka for them it was salivation. I mean, I think that people, and I never thought about it this way, but Bella was kind of talking about how people will do that when they're friends with you or acquaintances with you. Like if you bring up a topic they don't want to talk about, instead of communicating, I don't want to talk about that, they will literally stop responding or they will not hang out or they like genuinely, I didn't even peep it, but there are subtle ways that people will kind of condition you not to bring up certain things or not to ask them about certain things or not to behave a certain way. Um, I think we all do it kind of subtly if we're embarrassed or uncomfortable, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about here, right? It's something a bit more sinister.
Right. And like this is something that I've been talking about for quite some time where I felt like I was being conditioned in different ways in different relationships in my life. And I think we've all experienced this to some extent. And we may also do it to other people, either consciously or subconsciously. This specific type of behavior would be considered negative reinforcement when somebody, if somebody is trying to communicate, let's just do this on like a more basic level. If you're trying to communicate how you feel, and anytime you try to say, hey, like, can we please not beat around the bush? Like, I want to talk to you about this. This is how I'm feeling. And they go, oh, or they immediately pull away. Or if this is a conversation that's happening over the phone, they all of a sudden are taking 15 hours to respond. And they're they're just saying as little words as possible and it makes you feel anxious. Deep down, you may not realize it because it's not like they're exactly fully pulling away all communication all at once. They're still communicating with you, but it's very obviously different from the regular behaviors that they would have with you. And this is kind of a form of negative reinforcement because it's okay if you want to talk about how you're feeling, I'm going to pull away the attention that I typically give you. I'm going to completely step away from this situation. And I'm going to keep doing that until you learn to stop doing it. Deep down, eventually it's not going to be so deep down. You're going to realize, okay, I want to talk about it, but he's going to disappear or she's going to disappear. Right. So this is something that I do want to say. Obviously, I am not a professional psychologist or psychologist in any capacity, but I do find it really, really fascinating because before I even knew the terminology for these things, I definitely felt that way. And I definitely felt when I tried to have certain conversations with people, they would purposefully, and I would say intentionally, I would say in a manipulative way, would pull away in a way that would teach me if I try to even communicate a discomfort that I'm having or a feeling that I'm having, it's going to get met with some type of backlash, whether it be them completely pulling away or showing dissatisfaction in some way or another. Um, and like we were talking about, this can happen with really different kinds of relationships, whether it be romantic or platonic relationships. And I also want to say, since you did touch on nigging, and I did as well, that you kind of gave a definition, I want to actually give you some examples because a lot of people get nagged and they don't even realize it. And like I said, this typically is something that's a bit more common with when it's being talked about with heterosexual romantic relationships. Um, you're smarter than I expected. I usually don't like girls who talk a lot, but there's just something about it. When you do it, it's just so cute. Things like that. Oh, you're one of those girls who likes astrology? You actually care about that kind of stuff? I guess you're kind of cute in a weird way. You're not usually my type, but there's just something about you. Like those kinds of comments where they're negative, but they're being said in a tone to where it could be perceived in some delusional way as a compliment is negging. And I do want to say if you are being nagged in any way, shape, or form, immediately clock that shit and unsubscribe from that situation. In that conversation. Don't fall for it, please.
And I kind of want to pivot from this to a recent experience that I had. I want to talk about it. So I genuinely believe, I mean, thought this before. I spent what, 4 hours in the ER, and I left more mentally ill than when I went in. Like, I left truly being like, maybe I belong there because I was starting to lose it. So I walk in. I'm like, I need a little re-up on the meds. You know what I mean? I don't have a doctor yet, but like, I need it for like 2 weeks until I see somebody. And I guess at intake, there are places that you can't be sarcastic, you can't tell jokes, you can't rely on anything, honestly. You need to be very clear. And this place is one of them, right? Unfortunately, I forgot that. So this is kind of genius. When you walk in, I thought the ER was all just like one place. Apparently not. Apparently there's two doors. And after they took my blood pressure, they put me in the other door. And I honestly was like, oh, like this room's a little bare, you know? I didn't think much of it. I was like, maybe this is just a more, an ER that lacks funding. You know what I mean? Who am I to judge? Um, but then like the TV was in a glass box. I'm like, you know what? It is around the corner from the hood. Like I'm really just trying my best not to jump to conclusions. And that was until they're like, "Oh, what do you wanna do? Like, we're gonna be here for a while." I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be, like, you know, editing essays, etcetera, on my computer." And they go through my bag, and they're like, "Oh, can you go through your bag?" I'm like, "I mean, security already did, but I guess yes." And they're like, "Oh, we can't leave you in the room alone because you have a cord." Girl, what am I gonna do with this USB-C cord? Like,
It breaks from me looking at it.
the lit what am I gonna do with it? You know what I mean? It can bear you think it's gonna hold human body weight? And what would I hook it to? Like, I'm actually already irritated. And then they bring in a man, which even more irritated. This man walks in, buff-ass man, and he's in a security getup, and they're like, "We're gonna have to scan you." I'm like, "I went through all of this when I walked in." He warns me. They're like, "Okay, you're clean." Clean for what? But if what are we doing here? So at this point, they assign like a little assistant, I'm gonna say, with like some girl. She's like clearly 19, 20. And her job is to watch me while I charge my computer. That's her job. And she's having to key with the security. Clearly, this is the easiest day, the easiest hour of her time on shift. So, she's vibing. I'm irritated. And mind you, they moved me to the hallway. So I guess more eyes could be on me, and I'm annoyed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here for a little re-up, and a lot is going on. But at this point, even though I'm irritated, I'm like, you know what? Sorry, like, you have to be, it was your fault, kind of, and you'll be in and out of here really quickly. Just deal with it, And the girl seemed sweet, like, whatever. That was until a white man, middle-aged white man, runs past me looking for the bathroom. Mind you, I was already even more irritated because when I went to the bathroom, they don't allow you to lock the bathroom. They had to unlock the bathroom with a key, and then I went into the bathroom and someone stood outside. The bathroom is not locked. If I'm in there for too long, I'm sure they would start knocking. So this is already making me irritated. Not to mention, a lot is going on. You can imagine what's going on in the hallways. A lot is going on. So this middle-aged white man runs past, and then the nurse walked past, and she is like, "Oh, okay, I think he's trying to leave." So everyone's like, "Okay, we gotta go, we gotta go." They chase after him, and then they corner him. And mind you, I'm like witnessing all of this. They corner him. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And whatchamacallit, they start asking him like where he's going. And he's like, "I'm going home." I'm like, "Word, same." And he's like, "Are you guys holding me here? Am I arrested?" They're like, "No, no, not at all." He's like, "Then why can't I leave? Like, I have rights."
It's a
I'm like,
valid
"He sure
question.
does." No, literally, he sure does have rights. So
What's
I'm
the
like
beef?
peeping this entire thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, "Oh, no, we're not saying you can't leave. We just want to make sure everything's okay." He's like, "Everything's fine. I'm going home." And I'm like, "Oof, like this is about to get interesting." And they're like, "Oh, like, we don't think you're in your right mind." He's like, "I'm in my right mind." And I'm like, "This could be me." So I'm really locked in now. Mind you, this argument is happening. The little girl's like, "Do you want earplugs?" I'm like, "No, not at all. Thank you." So I'm locked in, and they start asking questions. So they're like, "What day is it?" He's like, "It's October blank Tuesday." I'm like, "Fuck, if they asked me that, I would have gotten it wrong." You know what I mean? I don't know what the date is.
I take every day a day at a time, girl.
Literally a day at a time. I'm like, "Oh my god, if they ask me that, they could lock me up in here because I don't know the answer to that question." And then
And
they
also,
ask
you're
if
on the spot. You're on the spot and your life's on the
you're
line.
on
You're trying to run. You're trying to go home. They're like, you're not
the
going home unless you answer these three questions, right? If not, that ass is
literally,
staying here. I would be nervous.
and you have 2 buff-ass security guards there too, and you have a nurse around you, like, counselors, like, everybody's around you, so this is a lot of pressure. And then they're like, "Who's the president?" He's like, "Donald Trump." I'm like, "Yes, I would've gotten on right. Okay, alright, 1 out of 2.
You're
Keep going."
cheering him on.
No, literally, but I can't do anything. I have to act like I'm not paying attention.
Hmm.
And then they ask him, no, before they ask him the 3rd question, he's like, "Yeah, he's been president for the past 8 years." And I'm like, he hasn't, but he might as well have been. You know what I mean? So, you know what? That's slip of the tongue. It's a high pressure situation. You know what I mean? A lot's been going on. He probably meant like, I understood how he got there. And then they ask him some other questions, and he gets all the rest of them right. But I'm like, you know what? We're in the same boat because I would have gotten the date question wrong. You got this one. That's life. You know what I mean? So I'm like, to me, he sounds good. You know? And then they tapped in these 2 little white boys. And these are, like, clearly former or current, like, D1 players. Like, you can just kinda tell by, like, the way that a young 20-something-year-old boy walks, like, the arrogance, and they were, like, fit. And I'm like, "Okay, like, these are, like, they play sports." I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you could just tell. So these 2 little boys walk in, and, I guess they're part of the team. And they're like, "We can't let you go, you know?" He's like, "I'm here of my own volition, and I wanna leave." I'm like, "This is really sounding like something that could happen to me right now." You know what I mean? Like, but and I almost wanna get involved. You know me, I can't mind my business for shit. So I'm gonna be like, why can't he leave?" So, I'll keep quiet. We have self-preservation. So then they're like, "The police brought you here because they didn't wanna take you to jail because they didn't think you were in your right mind, and neither do we." I'm like, "Ooh, okay, maybe not his own volition, but, like, kind of?" And then, I kid you not, this man's, like, at least 6'2", 250. These 2 little white boys, not the security, mind you, the security also buff, but these 2 little, I'm guessing they're, like, mental health technicians or whatever, or assistants or something. These 2 little white boys pick or CNAs or something, they pick him up, clean up. Each one grabs his shoulder, they pick him up, and they walk him across that hallway into a room. And I'm like, "You know what? I was thinking I had a chance." You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe the security guards would've gotten me, I coulda got I'm like, "No. They run a tight ship over here." So, at this point, I'm like, let's call him Gerald. Gerald's locked in, not locked in, locked up, actually. And I'm looking around like, "This could be me." I'm really paranoid, but I still have my computer and my phone, you know what I mean? And I thought I still had no, we're gonna get there, actually. So, then they make me talk to this therapist. She's just irritating me. I'm like, "Here, listen, there was a misunderstanding at intake, you know what I'm saying? I think she misheard me, misunderstood my sarcasm. I'm here for a quick little one too. You know what I'm saying? Can you just send the meds to my pharmacy and I can leave?" And she's not having it. She's just like, "We're
The
gonna see. We're
most
gonna see."
the scariest part about this is she probably hears that same line about a trillion times a week, and she's like, "No, for sure, for sure." And it's like, now I'm anxious because you're saying for sure and you're saying, "Yeah, but I can read your body language, but I can't explain that I can read your body language and something's off and you're not telling me the truth."
No,
Now I look paranoid
literally.
and you're not listening to me and it's freaking me out and I can't trust you. You don't
No,
trust
literally.
me.
I'm there for an hour and a half, and I'm already, like, so paranoid, and if they accuse you of paranoia, you're locked in, like, you're locked up,
You're
girl.
not going home.
So you're not going home. So she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, so how long will it take to see the doctor?" 'Cause if you're not gonna give me a concrete answer on anything, we're gonna figure that out, you know? And she goes, "Oh, it might be, there's a lot going on here today." I'm like, "Girl, I've been in the hallway for about 45 minutes. I can see, you know?" But she's like, "Maybe like 2 hours." I'm like, 2 hours? She's like, "I'm gonna see if I can get you in sooner." I'm like, "Yeah, let's see about that." Um, and then she goes, "Worst comes to worst, you can see them tomorrow morning." I'm like, "Tomorrow morning?" She's like, "Yeah, we might just have to hold you overnight just to get you in early in the morning."
Here's the problem. I wouldn't believe her. You want to keep me here to observe me, and tomorrow's going to turn into tomorrow, and that tomorrow's going to turn into another tomorrow. And then if you start crying, it just looks worse. So I don't know what I would do. Like, what do you do in this situation? You just have to cooperate and be calm. But how do
No,
you
literally.
express your concerns when everything they're saying is on the basis of trying to keep you calm? You're manipulating me and you're lying to me, or maybe you're not, and I can't tell. And I want to go home.
E
I know a
Either way,
date,
I'm
please.
concerned. Mind you, for, like, days, I've been going through it until I look like a hobo at work. But this day, I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to the ER, this is a concerned situation. I'm gonna make sure I look good." Girl, I'm wearing slacks, I'm wearing a little bodysuit, I'm wearing a sweater vest, you
Mhm.
know? I look very professional.
Shout out
My
to my
hair looks
mom. My mom taught me that as well. Like, you go to the doctor, you have to make sure you have clean underwear. You never know. You have to. I always have clean
no,
underwear.
because
Let me
medical
make it clear.
racism is so real.
But my mom always instilled into me, like, you need to make sure, no matter how
You look
terrible you're feeling,
great.
she would literally make me bring extra clothes, even if we had to call 911. And if she was in pain, she would make sure that she looked at least somewhat decent and would try to stay as calm as possible, no matter how much pain she was in. But that's a whole other thing. We could get into medical
Yeah,
racism but please do
literally.
continue. I'm locked in. I have never heard the story, by the way, everyone. Um, she was, we did have one take and it got a little messed up due to technical difficulties, but my legs are crossed. I'm locked in. We haven't gotten this far yet.
No, literally. So, at this point, I'm like, "No, it's fine, like, I don't need to stay overnight. I could just, like," she's like, "No, it's okay, we wanna make sure we get you help." And I'm like, "Okay, girl." So, at this point, I'm like, "There's no right answer here." You know what I mean? So I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, thank you. Thank you." And then I go back to my hallway because I don't have a room. Mind you, this little 19-year-old girl, I think, and the little waitress security guard are the only ones peeping that I'm really peeping everything that's going on. Because when that situation was happening with Gerald, that's not his name, mind you. Again, sorry, I would never. I mean, I can't violate HIPAA, but you get what I'm saying. We're all going through it in this ward. I'm not gonna do somebody like that. So she's like, "Do you want earplugs?" I'm like, "No, I'm okay. Thank you. I have AirPods." Mind you, the AirPods are not in my ear because I am locked in. So, girl, anyways, I'm overhearing that there's somebody being brought in who needs a little more help, And this is where I messed up. I'm like hearing this, and the girl's like, "I can't leave her." You know what I mean? Like, she has a cord. Mind you, I have a cord in the hallway, and the Asian security guard is right there. What am I gonna do? In the hallway when there's 18 people coming in and out? Like, can we please be serious? So at this point, I feel bad for this little girl. So I'm like, "You know what? here, girl, just take the cord. And she's like, oh, you want to just put it in the bag and like put your bag in the locker? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Here. I'm like, you can go ahead and, watch the other person coming in. And she's like, thank you. I thought I had my keys in my pocket because I never put my keys in my bag. I was wrong. My keys were in my bag.
Oh no.
Because of like security check-in, I took everything out of my pockets. Remember, like when you go through ER, you have to take everything out of your pockets, and I put it in my bag instead of back in my pocket. So I now I'm sitting there, I'm pretending to edit essays and do whatever I'm doing on my computer, and there's a lot going on, and I'm a little more paranoid now. After talking to that lady, and another lady was brought in, an older lady, and I'm just seeing how they talking to her. She's kind of dealing with some similar stuff. I'm a little paranoid, and I'm like, let me make sure that like if I need to go, I can go. I have my keys on me. I don't have my keys on me. So I'm there for like another hour and a half. And at this point, I'm like, when's the doctor gonna see me? And they're like, oh, like soon, soon. But I'm just peeping all of this, and I'm like, I've had my fill. Oh, mind you, the two little D1 players, they do another little rotation. Let's just call it that. So at this point, and the way he's security guard, he is about his job too. So I'm like, I'm paranoid. So I go up to a woman at the desk. Mind you, she gives me a fat attitude. Girl, how about if I was, you know what? Let me not. Gives me a fat attitude. I'm like, hey, I'd like to leave ROR. Mind you, I want to leave my own recognizance. It's a legal term. It's not a medical term. She goes, you mean AMA? I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. Against medical advice, I guess. So that's how you know I'm like so paranoid. I'm like, I have rights. So she's like, you have to find a nurse. I'm like, okay. Mind you, they work in these girls like the nurse is overpopulated, understaffed. But I find my nurse, cute little white girl. I'm like, hey. She's like, hey. I'm like, hey, girl. So, can I leave AMA? Like, can I just get my form? I'll sign everything and go.
This is all just a big misunderstanding. Like,
No, literally. And I say it just like that. I'm like, hey, sorry, I'm so sorry, girl. She's like, yeah, can I please get the forms to sign? I'm just gonna leave AMA. And then can I also get my bag, please? Yeah, thank you. And she's like, yeah,
suck
yeah,
it
yeah,
up.
yeah.
For sure, girl. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, yeah, for sure, for sure. So I sit down, and maybe like 10 minutes later, she walks past me, and my bag isn't there. Neither is any paperwork. So I'm a little concerned. I'm like, hey, where's the paperwork? Did you? But no, my bag's in the locker. She's like, yeah, we're just gonna have you meet with the doctor before we can let you leave. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm good to go. Like, I don't need to meet with the doctor. It's okay. She's like, no, but we have to. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Can I get my bag, please? She's like, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have you meet with the doctor. Bella, my stomach's at my ankles. I'm like, this is my mistake. Like, I should not be here.
And the fucked up part is the more also I understand trying to keep the patient calm, but I feel like you not being honest with me would make me feel so much worse.
No,
Why
the
are
thing
you
is, she
running me around in
was.
circles? I'm anxious listening to this.
No, literally. The thing is, she was being honest. She's like, we can't let you leave until you meet with a doctor. But
Mhm.
the thing is, like, it's like honesty, but still a lack of information, you know?
I feel like you can also tell when somebody thinks that you're not all there and they're being nice to you, but it's kind of because they're scared. Like deep
No,
down.
literally. No, literally.
So where's the bag? Do you
So
tell?
where's the bag? And I'm telling you, these two little white boys are on watch. Like, like they are not playing,
They're locked
So,
in. They're locked in.
you know what I mean? I was like, I thought like I would be protected, but like I've been on Ozempic, so I'm like, maybe this is not a good sign. So literally, the doctor
Did
comes.
you
The
just
doctor
say
is
that?
like,
Wait, hold on. I missed that comment. Did you just? Okay, I'm sorry. That was really funny.
no. So literally, the doctor comes, and he's like this older white man. He reminds me of Ewan from Succession. And he's like, hey, so they've told me that, you're here for some medication and that, oh, like, and he says, like, you're here also because of concern. I'm like, listen, there was a misunderstanding at intake. I am fine. Okay. I was just here for a refill at the pharmacy. Like, I am good. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to leave AMA? I said, yeah, it's fine. The medication can wait. I'm good. Like, I'm good. He's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, no,
We
doctor,
can
it's
though.
okay. You
No,
can.
like we can. You're such a cool guy. Like, come
No,
on.
literally. And he's like, okay, so I can't like increase your med, but I can like refill it. I'm like, Great, great, yeah. And I'm really trying to get out of there, so I'm not even waiting for him to finish his sentences, you know? And he's like, "Okay, you just have to promise me you're gonna be safe." I'm like, I am safe, like, that was a misunderstanding, I'm safe."
Give me that pinky. We're so locked in. I've never been safer.
Literally. So he's like, "Okay, I'll send the refill for you. You don't have to leave AMA. I don't want you to, have to sign all that work and like go through that." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much, doctor. Thank you, thank you." He's like, "Great, great, okay, all right, I'll send it over." So at this point, I'm like, you know what? Things turn around. You stay calm. But I'm there for another 10 minutes, and I still don't have my bag.
And it's like, you wanna ask again, but you don't
No,
wanna push
literally.
it. You don't wanna push it because he said he could go home, and I wanna believe you.
No, literally. And then I have the nurse keeps walking past, she with Gerald, she with other people. So I'm just kind of like, okay, you know, what's going on here? And I make eye contact with her. I don't say anything, but you could tell in my eyes, like, you know what I'm thinking, girl. And then she sends one of the little boys to go get my bag, and they bring my bag. And I'm like, okay, worst comes to worst, I can't make a run for it because there's security everywhere, but I feel a little bit more secure.
Mhm.
Anyways, they do let me out. They do discharge me. I asked them if they validate parking, and they said no. She was like, "We have to pay for parking too." Parking was $10 for like 4.5 hours. Girl, they make you spend $250 a month on parking? That's crazy. So I paid for my parking. I called Tim. I told him the situation when it was fresh with a lot more detail. But genuinely, I left after those 4 hours crazier than I went in. Like, I don't think any part of that, like, what part of that was supposed to ease me. You know what I mean? Like, I was fine when I walked in. Not really, but I was okay. I left paranoid, looking over my shoulder, digging through my bag to make sure my keys were in there.
Are
Like,
they following me? Is this an extended test?
no, literally. I'm like, okay, like, I genuinely think it's so sick because you walk in and you might need help, but you don't come out the same. Like, yeah, I don't know. I genuinely think it's a psyop to make you crazy so they can get more money out of your insurance. And, the longer you're there, the more you start to lose it. I genuinely think it's all scam. Psychiatry's a scam. Psychology's a scam. I yeah, no, I literally left. I was not okay the rest of the day. I was paranoid.
Wow. Okay, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That was very vulnerable of me to share. It was very okay, let me shut up. No, but all jokes aside, that was a very interesting story, and like I said, I've never heard that story in its entirety, and I think I asked you not too long ago, like, "Oh, like, when did this happen? Like, I didn't hear this." "Oh, a couple days ago." "Girl, what? A couple days ago?" A couple days ago. Also, I do wanna say, I understand that especially healthcare in America is not, maybe adequate, and especially with health insurance, there's a lot of health insurance scams going on. But if you are thinking of hurting yourselves or other, please do seek medical attention
Yes, yes, we support
expeditiously.
that.
Please.
But coming back to the fact that they literally hate you, I think another level of hatred that kind of happens in these dynamics is somebody, and I want to get into this because we also got a comment in our link tree about boundary setting, and I feel like we could fold that into this, is somebody projecting their boundaries onto you, and like how to exactly set a boundary. I think in many ways, people think boundaries are like rules that you project onto somebody else, where it's like, you can't do that. That's my boundary. Like, my boundary is I don't hang out with people who do that. That's not how life works, right? You don't get to dictate to other people the way that they live their lives. A boundary, if you want to communicate a boundary, is like, hey, I don't really feel comfortable with that, or whatever else it may be. And then you remove yourself from the situation because you are an individual human being, right? You don't get to dictate to other people how they live their lives. If you're uncomfortable with something or something's a boundary to you, it is your job to then reevaluate how exactly you want to navigate that relationship. I think that a lot of the therapy speak has made people delusional in how they navigate the world. You don't get to impose your worldview onto others. I mean, I guess to a certain extent you do within reason of like human rights and stuff like that, but you get what I'm saying. You don't get to dictate to the people that you are in community with how they're allowed to navigate the world. If you are uncomfortable with it, remove yourself from the situation. If your boundary is, hey, I'm going sober and I'm not comfortable being around people when they're drinking, you don't get to tell people after dinner we can't go to the bar because I have this boundary. It's like, okay, you leave after dinner. You know what I mean? Um, and I do think to a certain extent, um, if you are trying to have a boundary and you don't necessarily like know how to actualize it yet, I think that a lot of the times that's where this level of miscommunication happens. Like you want to be a kind of person that has this kind of rule in their life, but you don't actually have that rule yet. And so your way of trying to impose that rule is by forcing everybody else to behave in that way. Um, and then what happens is people begin to become triggered and feel disrespected, and people are then villainized for their reaction to that, right? So the person who's reacting, being like, I'm an adult, I don't know what you thought this was, is now villainized for the way that they're responding rather than the person who literally provoked that reaction. And I think that happens a lot more with like people who are passive aggressive because they refuse to ever acknowledge something head on or deal with a relationship like head on. And so what happens is they find ways to kind of trigger other people around them. That way they can end the situation feeling like the victim or feeling like they didn't actually start anything, when in reality they kind of navigated the landmine of this person's emotions in a way that they knew that this was what was going to happen, you know?
So again, I honestly I love hearing you talk about things. It always brings up more conversation and more topics and more questions. I think there actually is, speaking of psychology jargon and terminology messing everything up. I believe that the specific word for this is actually reactive abuse. Um, you are then villainized for reacting to the way that somebody treats you. This is a huge issue, and this is something that again I have unfortunately experienced before, and this also kind of falls in with the negative reinforcement thing that we were talking about before. Um, how is it that you get to treat me some type of way and you get to talk to me or about me a certain type of way? And like you said, a lot of times this comes in the form of passive aggressiveness and is indirect or is not anything that you could necessarily screenshot or bring onto paper. And it's not like, it's not a case that you've built up on them. It's a feeling, and it's a behavior that you've observed over however long, and you finally stand up for yourself and it's like, whoa, like why are you blowing up, or why are you so upset? Like, what is the problem? What is your problem? And I would definitely say to some extent that falls into the definition of reactive abuse.
And if you're somebody that is in that situation, I genuinely think because of the way that the person you're dealing with navigates the world, the only reaction that you can have, as messed up as it sounds, is just
Leave,
leaving. Yeah, you
leave.
can't blow up, you can't do anything. You cannot have a moment, your closure is leaving, babe. Like, you're not gonna have this conversation and this whatever. No, like, you have to completely remove access, get up and leave. Because in many ways, no matter what you do, if you say anything, you're giving that person, to a certain extent, the reaction that they wanted. It's gonna end with them in tears and you looking crazy. Like, you're not going to have this quote unquote closure that you think you're gonna have. I'm so sorry. Your closure is sitting with yourself and journaling or something because, um, yeah, there's no way around it. There's genuinely no way around it. You're gonna be villainized regardless. And I think that kind of gets into the conversation of a question that we got, which is, what's better, completely cutting off someone who was close to you after mistreatment or telling them before you cut them off? I have done both, can I say? Um, Obviously, I do think the better thing is to tell them. Like, I think that if you're somebody who wants to be quote unquote high integrity, I think that it is valuable to tell somebody how they've hurt you, even if you no longer want to have a relationship with them. It could be something that they can reflect on, and even if they villainize you for whatever reason, at least you feel like you've said something and you've left that dynamic with a quote unquote clear conscience or doing the right thing. However, I have also just cut people off completely after they've mistreated me or after they've done something that has rubbed me the wrong way. I never felt it necessary to kind of in some dynamics, I never felt it necessary to kind of sit down and have the awkward conversation because in my mind, if I no longer want to be in community with you, there's no reason to put myself in that uncomfortable situation and talk to you about it. Like, you're no longer a part of the crew, babe. Like, I don't have to talk to you about shit. But again, I do acknowledge that the higher integrity thing to do is to sit down and have that conversation.
I also really value communication, and I do think it's important to express the way you feel. And like I said, in the teaser, a big part of resentment is can even be towards yourself. You may even resent yourself for how you reacted to a certain situation. And maybe we've all been in that situation, and I understand it's difficult. But I also do want to say sometimes, especially if you've done your piece before and you've given that speech before and you've sent those paragraphs and you've explained time and time again and you're trying to you're trying to make them assign some form of humanity to you and you're falling apart or maybe you're not, maybe you're frustrated. Sometimes, babe, it really is okay to just never talk to them again, especially when this is somebody who is really not even reaching out to you. Sometimes people really do keep you around for an ego boost or for a good time or to use you, whether it be physically, emotionally, financially, socially, whatever it is and however it is that they were keeping you around. Sometimes it really is okay to, like Saharla said, pick up a journal, call up the people who do care about you and love you and are in community with you, write about it, talk about it, sing about it, sleep about it, cry if you need to. But sometimes you just need to let people go. And I will say this is something that I've experienced before with a specific person where I've tried to communicate how I felt more than a couple of times and it's always left with, well, things don't work out because you end up getting upset in the end. And sometimes there never will be a resolution with some people. And sometimes you have to find the resolution and the peace within yourself. And if you can relate to this, please, please do know, I know how difficult it is. And another thing that I would say to keep in mind with any relationship, whether it be, a friendship or romantic or even a coworker, sometimes you will not feel fully at peace when you walk away. Sometimes you may even still be questioning yourself and if it's the right decision. If you communicated, you're not seeing changes, you're still the bad guy, maybe have a moment of introspection, look back at that situation, take what they said into consideration, but also take into consideration that maybe that relationship is not a relationship that needs to continue anymore.
No, 100%. And I think that's when you get into like, yeah, it's not, there really is no point sometimes. It's like the psych ward. Like if you're in a psych ward, um, you don't need to, you don't need to debate everything. You know what I'm saying? If you get to a certain situation of you're debating things with the physician or with the nurse, you're going to end up there a little longer, babe.
Don't
I'm
be so
saying this from,
impatient, as they say on.
no, literally, I'm like saying this from literal personal experience. Like you're not going to gain anything from going back and forth in that dynamic. Sometimes the better thing to do is to simply nod your head and keep it pushing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, you genuinely gain nothing by doing the opposite. And I
Stop
think
punishing yourself.
literally,
Stop punishing yourself. This is another human being the way you are, and the same way that you deserve respect and they deserve respect. You need to respect yourself and know that you are worthy of being around people who actually love and care about you. I know sometimes it's hard to stand on business, and I've had moments myself where it's difficult, but I really truly have gotten to the point in my life where I'm not even sure how I feel about religion and where I stand with my faith. I'm not sure if my faith is even intertwined with religion anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I am looking at atheism and it's not out of fear, it's not out of sadness, and it's not out of resentment. There's that word again. It's kind of just out of, I'm not sure that this makes sense for me anymore. And maybe some people will see how those are connected and maybe you won't. If you don't, then you can ask me about it if you would like to. But it really gets to a point where I'm not scared anymore. I'm not sad anymore. I'm not upset anymore. I just feel at peace.
yeah. Speaking of atheists and godless people in general, I want to let you know right now, if you have never dealt with this is me being your older sister and giving you a PSA. You never want to be in community with somebody who calls themselves a leftist or a communist. They are absolutely insufferable. They themselves are not for the community. Like, we can get into a whole thing of defining it, but genuinely, to keep it short, they're not good at anything. They're not like Ask a friend to ask a friend, has anyone ever heard of a communist being a good friend, being good in bed, being a good vibe? No, they just feel like a need to try and be morally superior, and they're insufferable. Um, Again, like I think there is this like fantasy of them being Che Guevara, but you have no skill that you actually do that helps the community, right? Like you're not a mechanic as a communist who tells people, "Oh, if you buy the supplies, I'll change your oil for free," You're not volunteering with the children in your community. You don't have a profession. You don't have a degree that helps people. Like, no shade, but, like, are you, like, a doctor that, works at a free aid clinic? Like, are you actually doing anything? You're calling yourself an activist, but you don't do shit but repost things on Instagram. And again, I am the bitch reposting things on Instagram, but I'm not sitting here pretending I'm morally superior to anybody else except, like, literal bigots. Um, but I feel like the older that you get and as you kind of enter your mid, early, late 20s, you meet more and more people who identify with radical political beliefs and genuinely do nothing but espouse bullshit that somebody else wrote. And yeah, like, do I think Karl Marx is interesting? Do I think the concept of a stateless society and is interesting? Do I think that it's funny how, in many ways, it mirrors people's conception of heaven? Yeah. Do I think it's interesting to discuss the world order? Sure. But I don't know. It's very irritating, dealing with young people who come from usually wealthy families who are pretending to have this radical politic and don't do anything actionable at all. Like, have I seen any of those young wealthy kids that I know that are quote unquote communists trying to get themselves on the flotilla to Gaza? No. Yeah, I don't do shit but talk. You don't even donate money. Like, what are we talking about here?
I would also say if you are interested in that topic at all when it comes to communism and if you do have a knack for history, I would look into the history of who and what a hippie actually is. A lot of the people that carry a lot of these ideologies actually did come from very wealthy families from what I do know about, and obviously don't take that as Bible. I'm going to be researching that some more myself, but I will say historically, this isn't even anything new. This is not anything revolutionary. Um, I do think that there is a lot of good change, and I do believe there should be universal health care. Let me throw it out
Amen.
there. That's random. I don't want you to think that I'm somebody that doesn't care about anybody, and I don't know. I actively do try to find ways to contribute to my community and give back to my community when and where I can, and I would like to do it more. And I'm definitely not a perfect. Oh, there you go. This example, I'm definitely not a perfect person in any regard, but I'm trying my best, like most people are. But I'm also not going to sit in your face and tell you that I'm all for the people when really I don't give a fuck about people at all. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I also do want to clarify. I don't necessarily think I'm an atheist, but I did want to share that with everybody because it's just another one of those things where we're in a transitional point in our life and I'm questioning everything and I'm questioning everyone. What makes you think that I'm going to keep you around and send you a 6-page essay on how you treat me terribly when I'm not even sure what up and down is anymore? I'm trying to figure things out. I don't have time
Yeah.
for it. If you don't want to be a part of my life, then you don't have to be. If you are part of my life and we are in community, I will always be there for you. And this is not me dipping into nihilism and me being a pessimist or me saying that community doesn't matter because it does. We need people as people. And I really truly do believe that. But I'm also not going to sit here and be delusional and say that every relationship needs to end in some drama or you over explaining yourself to people who don't even see you as a human being. Thank
No,
you.
1,000%. 1,000%. I was gonna say something, but it literally left my brain completely. Thank you for that, Lord. But I want to go off of, oh yeah, I was going to say that again, there are wealthy people who are actually about to struggle. My queen, Greta Thunberg, comes from a wealthy family, and she's at the front lines of literally every movement. We do love her and appreciate her. Speaking of that, my personal beef with Peter Thiel, um, has been known for many years before he became this massive talking point that he is now. Right? I've been at the forefront of this for a very long time. If you know me, you know. But the fact that he's having a multi-part, um, I guess, talk on the Antichrist, not just like one part, it's like 3 parts or something. Number one, I think it's because people keep accusing him of being the Antichrist. So it's like a reverse thing where it's like the reverse Walt Disney, Frozen thing where he's, like, trying to get rid of the Google search of that, where he's like, "Oh, hey, so, let's reverse Streisand effect this. If you Google Peter Thiel Antichrist, my talk is gonna come up, and not the accusations and conspiracies about me being the literal Antichrist." But he literally came out and said that he thinks Greta Thunberg might be the Antichrist or connected to the Antichrist, which is, like, quite literally insane. I do have to say that I will not be tuning into his full talk, but I will be tuning into the clips because he genuinely makes me so uncomfortable. And these the white South African mafia that has taken over the US government right now, they all need to be stopped. But that's a whole other conversation about the spiritual relationship, I would say. Spiritual in the sense that, like, they are kind of spiritually the same of white South Africans and Israelis. And also you can get into, like, the fact that they're actually connected and how many white South Africans after apartheid fell moved to Israel, which is really interesting. Um, but, all of that is its own topic, but I did wanna bring that up, that we do love our queen Greta, and the fact that the literal Antichrist is trying to accuse her of being the Antichrist, insane. Genuinely insane. Like, literally no connection, but I feel so strongly about this. I am genuinely so envious, and the deep envy every time college football season starts, because there's nothing I wanna be more than, like, a running back or a quarterback of, like, a major Big Ten or, like, SEC school. I would give a lot to be that. Um, I would give a lot to be that. I genuinely would, and I mean, like, penis envy in the, not in the Freudian sense, because we know that he was a weirdo and a pervert. I don't wanna get into, like, a Jeffrey Masson of it all. If you don't know that lore, that's a whole nother conversation. Perhaps I can get into at a later time, but there were many accusations made. Um, anyways, back to the point of the story. I mean penis envy in the Karen Horney way, which is a later German psychoanalyst. So she kind of expands on the idea and says that Freud is a pervert and a weirdo, but young girls' actual penis envy comes from the societal power that men are given and that they associate with masculinity. So I mean it in that sense. But yeah, like I have a deep envy, like a deep penis envy of, like, I guess, like, really great D1 players. I don't know what the fuck I want to go with this. But also, you brought this up, Bella, where it's like the men also have that same envy. It's very homoerotic as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of times they admit it
They do.
very openly. I think that this is a concept that's like right in the open, but people just don't talk about it very often, or maybe I live under a rock. But
No, they genuinely don't. I think another layer of it for me is I don't want to be like even any running back or like I didn't want to be just a great running
I
back
don't
or
need
like
the running back.
not even that. I
I
want to
need
be
that
one that
guy, him,
um
as they
no
say.
him as they say. No, I want to be the one that is like works hard, parties hard. Like I would kill to be like Johnny Football in his prime, or like Baker Mayfield in his prime in college. Not even I don't even care about the NFL and their the slavery of it all over there. I mean, I guess so is college football and the NIL has made it a bit more equitable, but that's a whole other conversation about how these schools profit off of young children and basically use them up, chew them up, and then throw them to the wolves. Um, but yeah, to be Johnny Football, I would give a lot. Like I didn't want to not be with him. I want to be him. Um, but that's a whole nother conversation.
This is an interesting one, I will say. Wow.
But
Um,
yeah, I kind of want to end on the note of the absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know what to call it. Actually, let's wait. Let me rethink this. But yeah, no, literally the fact that I will never be that, very sad. Very sad. Speaking of sadness, I feel like to a certain extent, when you're aware enough of what's happening in the world and you're like smart enough to actually like process it, I don't really know if as in society as it stands, if you have the capacity to actually be happy or even content. I think it comes with a level of genuine, I don't even know if a horror is the right word, sadness, melancholy. I don't really know what the word would be. But I feel like if you are an empathetic, aware person with a baseline level of intellect, I don't know how you're happy in this world. If you're happy right now and you feel like you fall into all of those categories, DM me. Tell me how you're doing it. I think to a certain extent, everyone's like genuinely not all the way at their peak. I don't know how you can be, especially as a young person who feels like this entire mess is going to be left for us to clean up. Um, and then you kind of get into the unknowns of it all with AI and all of that. Like, but yeah, if you are happy, like, please actually don't even DM me. Put something in, like, just, yeah, DM the actual Instagram account. I can learn from you. I need to figure out how you're doing it. If it is modern medicine, let us know. Maybe I need to switch up what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think I need to switch up too. Um, there's a lot going on in the world. I still have hope for us, y'all. I still have hope for us. I think
And I think it's important, right? Like, I
it's
think to a
important.
certain extent, many
Ignorance
people
is not
like
bliss in this situation.
no, and I think many people like the Antichrist Peter Thiel are depending on us to kind of be pessimistic and feel like we're powerless in this situation, which
Please
we're
don't give up.
absolutely not. Which
Yeah.
we're yeah, we're literally not. But I do think to a certain extent, a lot of the media that we consume, um, and the ways in which we have been socialized to kind of follow the rules from a young age, I think and I think has taught us or attempted to teach us that we hold a lot less power than we actually do. And even the relationship that we're kind of taught to have with civil disobedience is really interesting and with violence. But I don't know if I can actually get into that and my views on like how protests in the modern age can actually work, especially with um, facial recognition and like governmental crackdowns. But yeah,
Mm,
I genuinely think there was a vested interest in kind of not glamorizing, but obviously everyone talks about this. There was an interest in kind of pretending that the level of brutality that was happening during the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement weren't as bad as, it was. But I think another layer of it was them kind of socializing us to view marching and chanting as the most effective means of resistance. When in reality, both of those movements had more effective means of resistance that I would argue actually led to their goals. But we were never actually taught about that, which I think is very fascinating. But on that note, I feel as though we've taken enough of your time
and we appreciate
and,
your time.
and we appreciate your
Mm.
time.
And like I said, we're learning and growing right along with you guys. Please do. If you see like if even an interesting article, drop it in that link tree. Please do. And I want to leave on a somewhat positive note. Know your rights, do some research, advocate where you can, be the best you can. Ignorance is not bliss. Don't let things get don't let things go right past you or right over your head. Don't
Yeah,
get swept off your feet. I believe in us. I think that we can do this and yeah, we're all in this together as they say.
we appreciate you,
Love
Bella,
is
and
the
the High School
fire.
Musical of it all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm obviously not that optimistic. I'm not that optimistic, but
We gotta
I do
try.
yeah, I mean, I guess. But anyways, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Post Disclosure.
As always, thank you. And we'll see. Well, you can't really see us. Maybe eventually we'll get to it, but we'll talk to you soon. Mwah.